Class 8. Cabal and power structures on Earth. Who really governs our planet?
Hi! Hello, cadets! It's been a while since the last video, but worry not, here we are continuing with the new subject. Last time we talked about how we are not alone in the universe, the extraterrestrial people, and in previous episodes about the matrix and false realities the controllers of Earth have us living in. And that includes the existence of ETs, or rather, as they want us to believe, their non-existence. All to keep us locked in the artificially sustained realm with its own self-contained rules and ideas that do not reflect what truly goes on outside. Why that is and what purpose it serves to have us so drastically limited, we will go into that in the future classes. But first, we must establish who the ones we refer to as Earth controllers are in the first place. Who is that mysterious cabal so many conspiranoids, and not only them, talk about? And are they really in charge of what goes on our planet? Okay, without further introductions, let's dive in, as the subject is not easy, and some of it will come to you as quite a surprise. To begin this complicated subject, we must first establish a base for further understanding, and that is, everything to do with the power structure on and around Earth is layered and compartmentalized, where one level doesn't necessarily know, or at all, what goes on at levels above, and sometimes they might even think their level is all there is. This is something fundamental to understand as we move through this subject. Let's begin from the most basic level, and that is what most people perceive as the power system they define as local, national, and international governments. This is the most obvious level of power, and one that most people on Earth are conditioned to trust and obey as authority. At this level, people still believe in official news, politicians, science, and everything presented to them coming from official sources. This is matrix layer of the structure, designed to give the bulk of the society the illusion of it being credible and the only authority over them. Needless to say, and as you already suspect, that is nothing but a game, a cleverly designed facade, and nothing of real importance with regards to the affairs on Earth takes place on this level. It only seems so to the unaware public. What we find immediately behind this official power level is more government, not so obvious anymore to the masses, something that the political science calls deep state, shadow government, military or intelligence services that exert influence regardless of elected governments. Further behind, we find an important level, which we will pause at to understand better, but in no way where the rabbit hole ends. One with numerous secret societies who are behind the official narratives given to the people. Those secret societies are also layered and also work in compartmentalized, graded fashion. Some of them can be called Illuminati, a now generic phrase you might be familiar with. Altogether, forming a network of highly sophisticated secret clans and organizations, intertwined and coordinating to control the entire planet, but also power struggling each other for more power and control. These are the levels which can be also referred to as lower levels of the Cabal, and all human governments are under its control. People operating on that level can also be called elites, secretly controlling our culture, politics, and economy. Although I would not say that this word is appropriate, as they are in no way superior to the rest of us. No, they are definitely not superior, but it must be noted that this is exactly how they view themselves. I could even go further and state that they consider anyone who is not them cattle, unintelligent, peasants, manipulable farm animals that are only to be exploited, and not only for a single reason. Most of those who live in higher social strata, if not all of them, come from bloodlines. That is, they are coming or descending from centuries-old or millennial families that have always had power, social rank, and money. Those families embed in their children the ideas, since they were very young, that they are different, that they come from blood, royalty, and therefore are entitled to owning whatever they own, and entitled to do whatever they want, including abusing lesser people below them. Being from these bloodlines makes them believe they are entitled to rule over others. And they also believe to be special because, according to some of them, the souls which incarnate into these ancestral bloodlines are picked by, as they say, divine law itself, which many of them follow. Where are they exactly? Can't we just get our hands on them and expose them? Not exactly. Something that may seem strange to some of you is that most of them hide from the public. If we know their names, they are not from the so-called true bloodlines, as they would call it, and are not the ones orchestrating it all. The ones that do have absolutely no desire to boast their status. One, because they know public attention could work against them, so they try their best to stay anonymous. I mean, if we found out, they would get hunted. So they prefer to hide behind the masks, the puppets, the frontmen politicians and similar ones. So if anything goes wrong, they could just replace them with others while they go on with their agendas. And two, because they are simply not in need of any recognition or validation coming from those they regard mentally inferior, us. They live in their own reality bubble that has nothing to do with ours, only when it comes to using us for their own interests. Power and control is the only thing they are interested in. I'll be honest, I cannot comprehend at all the need for gaining more and more power and control. Where is it coming from? I have absolutely no idea what level of one's being that need is coming from and why. But let me quote my Taigetan friend on this. Those who are in power, whoever they are, the only thing that matters to them is to have more power and control and to sustain the one they already have. So the interests of the common good are far from being in their minds. They do not care about the population. They want to exploit it. Do you know they don't even use the same science or economy as the rest of us? That's right. They have their own, with their own advancements, which they then decide or not to release, and with the speed decided again by them. They, the Cabal controller of the Earth, has even implemented very efficient systems of discrediting that are activated against any person or event that falls outside the frame of the accepted science quarrel. They control what is possible and what is not. They know politics is only a show, puppetry, to make people believe that they have some control over who governs them, while they, the controllers, usually run both opposing sides. They obviously control the media as well, and love to cause division between people, because the more divided they are, the easier it is to rule over them. They use different economy, no dollars, euros or coronas. Those are for their sheeple. They don't have the same spirituality or religions either. Those are for the masses, as they know most of them are implemented by them for control purposes. They follow their own rites. The official religions, all of them, are a simplistic compendium of more complex and profound concepts that only secret society initiates know well. This because they do not want to give, and they would never give the human population real and reliable knowledge, because it would give the people true power, and that would put those who are part of the secret societies that are in control of the earth at risk. So religions are just a caricature of what the controllers see as real, simplistic cartoon for what they see as inferior minds. As we were explained, it is not easy to know what their creed really is, because it changes a lot with each level. In the lowest layers, they believe in the influence and worship of entities which give them more power. Parasitic entities of the lower astral that we will discuss in future classes. Yes, those are real. It is also known they follow Satanism, worship the black sun, and complex astral theology, while others would follow more elevated spiritual principles, implement ancient Egyptian and Druidic elements, etc. But let's not go into all this at the moment. Let it only be understood that their spirituality is different from what they give to the public as religions. Now, as mighty as those who dwell in this level view themselves, this layer of the power structure of Earth is not the top of the pyramid, and you will be surprised to find out where it ends, so stay tuned. We will get to that towards the end of this video and in the next one. But before, there are more important things to learn about the level of the Cabal we have been discussing so far. One of the main command centers for the Cabal is the Vatican. It is the main control organization of planet Earth, at least of the part that is visible by the people. Vatican is basically the state of Rome, and the Pope is the Caesar with another name, same thing. Rome never fell. It just transformed itself into something according to the times. Rome is still the main control mechanism over planet Earth, and has been so since at least 600 BC, although the exact date is dubious. As my Taigetan friends view this, what the controllers use is so-called monster of three horns. The Vatican itself as the first horn that controls spirituality, the City of London that controls the economy, and Washington, D.C. that controls the military force over planet Earth as the third horn. And this one polices everyone so they conform to the narrative and the needs of the Jesuit Illuminati Cabal, whose headquarters are in the Vatican. Yikes! You heard right, the Jesuits. Officially a religious order of clerics in the Catholic Church headquartered in Rome. The Illuminati are the Jesuits. Same thing, just semantics. They work through the Freemasons, and their influence is all over the world, using lodges and secret societies. Although we can say that the Cabal control mechanism and tentacles go further away and include many other aspects and power structures worldwide, all the roads lead to Rome, and the Vatican is the center of control over the Cabal, is the Cabal, the head of the Cabal itself. Although it must also be stressed that Vatican is not only one level, it's several, and what is called Vatican with that specific name may only be human matrix level meaning. You may wonder why people at these levels feel so superior to the rest of us and why they look down on us as ignorant. One of the reasons is that, according to them, they are informing us constantly about their plans for us or about what they did, but we, the people, stupidly do nothing about it, blindly accepting it all. For the most part, we do not even see it. Wait, what do I mean by them informing us about their plans? Why would they do that? Okay, something important you must understand about this layer of control, the higher strata human Cabal, is that they believe very much in karma, duality, and in balancing of energies, good and evil, all part of their divine law. That's why the black and white checkered floors in their lodges. And that is why you will see so many of them working altruistically for the humankind, setting up foundations to help others, with seemingly benevolent intentions, while at the same time they will also do unimaginable evil to those same others, working very much against people's interests. That need for balancing karma is also seen in that the Cabal believes they are always telling people what they will do and do, using movies, series, songs, media, and so on. Even though the method of that communication is cryptic and most people cannot uncode it anyway, in their view, they have done their part, their duty, as they embed their plans and what they do in mass media and pop culture pretty much everywhere. In their minds, people are being informed, but choose to permit it, ignorant sheeple as they are. In their minds, the desired karmic balance has been obtained, and they fulfilled their obligation. They truly believe they are not doing anything negative, and that people get what they deserve. Not a very pleasant bunch, huh? Definitely not. Although they would simply say it's our choice to view them this way. and that we simply do not understand the full picture. Well, in my book, anyone who is using, manipulating, and destroying others to further self-proclaimed higher agendas and feeling superior to others the way these guys do, deserves nothing but disdain. And that's what they get from me. My choice it is. And it is my choice and duty to inform the others. I also have my duties. And I know this is also something they fear. You might be surprised to learn, and this is something very important, probably most important of everything said so far, that many Cabal members of this level, despite viewing people as sheeple, are actually terrified of the public waking up, terrified that the masses will one day realize they are living a lie, horrendously manipulated and exploited. Quoting an unknown Illuminati woman, if the population finds out who has been doing all that to them, they would hunt us to the end of the world, and there would be no place where to hide, and we would be lynched with no mercy. That's why it's so important to become educated on these matters, to finally realize what is happening and wake up to the power we, the collective, have over the few, as that is precisely what they are, minority, just with tricks and superiority complex. And Space Academy's role is to help you become aware of all this, to help you connect the dots, question, think, expand, and above all, help you become sovereign individuals who do not follow blindly, not us either. Now, I told you that this layer of the onion is still not where the rabbit hole ends, right? It is not. Time to dig deeper and share with you what happens in higher layers of the power structure on Earth. Are you ready?
After the level of secret societies and global elites, we have still deeper and deeper levels of control, ones that might be hard to accept by average Earth citizens, since the stage most people are at is not being even able to accept Illuminati and Cabal as something real. For most, these are just conspiracy theories, so how can they even start to fathom the existence of a much deeper structure of control that dominates and dictates everything to the Illuminati, Jesuits, Cabal, and all those on a shallow level? Everything is layered, remember? So it naturally expands into higher and deeper structures. And the levels we are entering now are the secret societies with direct communication with non-human entities, being that many of their members are not Earth human either. At this level, things get really dubious and murky about what species is what and what they do exactly. But these are entities such as non-human regressive extraterrestrials, but also others, which we will discuss a bit further on, forming alliances and treaties with Earth Cabal and representatives of higher strata of secret societies. Those secret societies, the deepest ones, and their non-human components, have no mercy or empathy towards the general population, and are not among the friendliest kind out there, to say it lightly. They also benefit from exploiting the human population, so they are interested in cooperating with the Earth Cabal. We will discuss them in detail in the future. Wait a second. Does it mean that the members of those higher-up power structures on Earth know we are not alone? Of course they do. Remember that what they give to the people on the lowest level including spirituality, knowledge, technology, science, is only a portion or a distorted, manipulated version of what they know to be the truth at the higher one. At this point, they all know that the Earth human being is not the only intelligent species out there, and they are all the time in contact and making agreements with other species that reside on Earth and outside Earth. If that's hard to wrap your head around, you must remember that since everything is layered, we are always immersed in the influence of all those layers together, mostly not being aware of it. On Earth, there are several realities, none of which go or fit with one another. There is one for the masses, for the simple people. There is another one for the politicians, another for low secret societies, and yet another for deep secret societies. Not to mention off-planet realities that also have a lot to do with what is going on Earth. So with this multi-level reality morphing system, it is impossible for the public to know what is what. Each reality described above has its own set of accepted rules, science, and all you can think of. And each level is always thinking that they hold the ultimate truth, as they are apparently above other levels. And as usual, they are blind to levels above them, due mainly to their own egocentric, narcissistic complexes. The kind of treaties made with the regressive, non-human and off-Earth races, purpose of them, etc., will be discussed at another point in our curriculum. But the point to understand for now is that the real control structure, society, or however you want to call it, is deeper than the Illuminati and Jesuits, Cabal, and all those that are only the first thin layer under the people's perception of reality on Earth.
Why is it all so layered and compartmentalized, you will ask? How is it even possible to understand it all with so much that is hidden from us and shrouded in continual secrecy? Well, that's the idea, not to be able to understand it. The idea behind compartmentalization, one of many, is to better control the society and also its members, where no one can grasp the full picture of anything and not be able to connect the dots, perhaps with this or that information leaking here and there, because of the Cabal's need to give people clues to balance karma. But in general, dots connectors are system destabilizers and a threat to the matrix status quo. The disruptions are not what the ultimate controllers truly want. And while on the topic of ultimate controllers, this is where the whole subject of power structures to do with Earth gets even more interesting. And with that, shadier. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the rabbit hole does not end with the secret societies. Not even with secret societies mingling with not friendly non-human races. Although related, the layer of the onion extends even deeper. And you might be, and probably will be, surprised to know where it goes. In Space Academy, we dare to look further behind the veil. Do you? What is the next level of control structure for Earth? Can you guess? Before I answer that, let's pause. There is a lot to process at this point anyway, so I will give us all a few minutes before launching the next bomb. Let's hear from the community friends on the topic of the Cabal and how they understand it. But don't go anywhere, You don't want to miss the end part.
Community Workshop.
Let's begin, and first we will hear from the ladies. Some of them you might already know. Shariva from the United States.
My understanding of Cabal is basically organized crime on a global scale. I see the Cabal as a small number of very powerful people that control everybody else. And also I think of the Cabal as a mindset, an attitude that permeates our institutions. I'm looking at hierarchical organizations where they are compartmentalized. There's a top-down approach. There's no heart or soul, where they're basically reinforcing the concept that only the experts or the elected leaders or the people with the degrees are smart enough or qualified enough to make decisions for you. It really takes away the power from the individual to look inside themselves, to think for themselves, to take responsibility for their own life, their own choices, their own decisions. These systems control the population through two mechanisms, one being perception management and the other being the draining of resources. So perception management is huge because that's basically mind control. It is basically the propaganda that we're fed, the norms and enculturation we experience growing up that teaches us how the world works, what our history is, what the rules are, what our role is supposed to be, and it tells us what the guardrails are for our mind. Unfortunately, I think most of us who are interested in this type of information, we really woke up in 2020 when we were researching and seeing information that led us to think, one situation was the facts, and then we were getting a completely different narrative from the media and from our own governments. They are using nudge units and intelligence agencies to heavily influence the media and our institutions, research institutions, as to what information is going to be pumped out and what information will be withheld. Some examples that I see that our institutions are compromised and are hiding information from us. Very simply, if you look at the Smithsonian Institute, there are all kinds of archaeological discoveries where the Smithsonian has been asked to come in and take a look, and then those artifacts have been quietly removed and you don't hear about them again. So things that would demonstrate to the average person that there's a whole lot going on. There's a lot of evidence of ancient technology, other cultures, people, races, human, non-human, that have existed here on Earth for a very long time. That is just swept under the rug. I'd say currently there's all kinds of artifacts coming out in Mexico and Central America. Funerary stone and mostly stone funerary objects are being excavated, mostly by non-expert archaeologists that are buried with actual bodies of grays. And these funerary objects depict spacecraft. They show and depict what look like early forms of hieroglyphics. Fascinating stuff. Even under the Giza Plateau, a new technology similar to LiDAR has shown that there are huge, constructive, cavernous, like city-sized voids underneath the Giza Plateau. And from my research, my understanding is that was an ancient spaceport because we were an interstellar civilization. But that, of course, is covered up by the Egyptian government, which leads me to, just the basic concept that history has been rewritten, that we have had many resets where, as the population, I suppose, thinks for themselves, knows too much, is not controllable, bad things happen, and history is rewritten. Those are examples of how I think the Cabal is a real thing. and more evidence is coming out that will make people question who's actually running the show. And the other component as to how the cabal controls us is through the draining of resources, and the most obvious resource is money. So people are working a lot and their energy is going into working, and then they come home and they're exhausted, and then their energy goes to the media. So that energy, that creative energy, is not going internally inside of ourselves. And also energetically we're being drained, and that gets into a whole nother field of who is harvesting our energy. Through fear and through anger and through sadness, we then project that out into the world, and it's mirrored back to us, and then we're surrounded by more negative fear and sadness. So it's an interesting thing when you start questioning what is the cabal, because there's many levels to it.
Nicely said. What Shariva said is very important, because one of the ways you can know some kind of shady organization does exist behind the veil, hidden mafia, as my dad, who was a history teacher, used to say, is how they treat historical records, how they always try to spin it their own way, hide it. In fact, we will talk about the subject in more detail in the future, about manipulation of historical events. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, now let's turn to Christy from New Zealand.
One of the first things that I found I started to realize when I was having sort of an awakening journey, which took years, one of the first things I started to realize is that there was a faction of beings. At first I thought they were just humans, but then I slowly started to realize that there's people off planet as well, and also just energies and entities that don't have to be physical. But I came to realize that there was a faction of these beings who were controlling everything on this planet. And they have their own agendas, and they are masters of manipulation and psychological warfare. Even more so than the military. I mean, these people are covert, and they're incredibly intelligent, and they're in it for the long game. They are, a lot of them are extraterrestrials, regressives, and they are manipulating us and our minds via media, entertainment, music, education, big pharma, medicine, governments, political leaders, religions. They basically rule it all. And they have their puppets who are sort of doing their bidding, but they are the ones who are sort of running the show. But once you realize this, you become more empowered, because you can study how they work, their manipulations and their tactics and their secrets, and you can kind of pull back the veil and see how this planet is really run. And I think that's absolutely essential if you're intent on sort of like breaking free from this artificial matrix that we find ourselves in on this planet. It's absolutely essential to study how the Cabal operate, who they are, what they want, and how you can counteract them, because a lot of it is, it's not just a physical thing, it's a sort of frequency thing that is happening with the Cabal. They're very much into how frequencies work and how energies work. They understand how to create fear and anxiety and sort of take that energy that we have from those emotions and basically use them to their advantage. And that's a whole other story, but what I'm trying to say is they're not just sort of living to be physical, they're living outside of physicality as well. They're not just humans, they're not just politicians, they're not just religious people, they're also living outside of this planet, and they're also living in other realms. So once you realize what they want, how they operate, you will be empowering yourself to start to control your reality. So yeah, stay tuned, because there is a lot to go into.
Important words. It does empower you to know what's going on, as then you can study how it all works and make more educated decisions. Part of breaking free from something, from the oppression, is knowing the oppressor's tactics and game. Understand what they want and their nature. And about other realms Christy is talking about, non-physical beings, we will get to that later on as well. Lastly, we have Tomek from Poland.
For me, the term Cabal refers to the deepest structures of power that govern this planet and which are already absolute. They are at the top of the pyramid, because power has a pyramid structure on our Earth. That is, looking at a company, we have basic employees, who are people, then there are managers or some local boards, higher up there are some politicians, then there are other rulers, presidents, and so forth. And the pyramid goes up and up. Then there are even higher secret societies, elites, and various people and institutions we don't even know about, because information goes upwards. Those higher up know more than those at the bottom. And we are at the very bottom of this pyramid, so we know nothing. That is why we do not know much about who they are and what is going on here. The term Cabal can be defined in different ways, and people define it differently. For example, the Illuminati, banksters, secret societies. And in fact, they are not so secret, because information about them is available if you do your research. And I don't believe it, I know it, because I did my own research, I checked, and I know that something like this does take place. It's worth looking into it, just digging around. It doesn't take much time to realize that something is really happening in the world, that there are rulers behind the curtain. If we type the phrase secret society or something similar into Google, the first results we see will obviously be fact checkers and politically correct information. So we have to dig deeper. We have people like Maxwell Jordan and David Icke, for example, who have done a great job of exposing these structures and showing how they work. We have entire banking systems that are exposed as fractional reserve banking, and it's also worth seeing how money is created out of nothing. And so the world is full of injustice for those who work at the bottom, full of war, suffering, and various other things we don't agree with, but in this system we have no choice. This is how everything is set up and that's how it is, but we don't know because we don't have the information, because we are at the bottom of the pyramid where there is no information. We have information that is conveyed by television, radio, the press, the media, which are official propaganda. This way, we will get nowhere. And when we suddenly want to find out more, we type secret Illuminati societies into Google, we get shallow information, which is really more propaganda. So, in order to know for yourself, you have to go deeper, do objective research. Just see for yourself. Check for yourself if something bigger is controlling this planet, and it's all available. All the information is available. It's just hidden behind mechanisms that censor it.
Another important point. Research. The topics we have discussed today are not something that is impossible to confirm, impossible to find information on, conspiracies. It's all out there already in this or that form. You just need to look into the subject if it piques your interest. Thank you, all of you, for your participation. As we have been explained, everything to do with power mechanism structure on Earth is super layered. And I have done my best to briefly summarize some of the lower levels of this control game. I also said that there is one more bomb to drop, and that behind the secret societies making treaties with not-so-friendly non-humans, there is yet another level. One that the previous level collaborates with and takes direct orders from. Okay, to grasp that, we need to go beyond Earth and into space, where we come face to face with the mega structure behind it all, the Galactic Federation of United Planets itself, or Galactic Federation for short. Wow, right? What the hell? Well, yes, similar but not the same type of organization featured in Star Trek or even Star Wars. And hey, pay attention, it is not fiction. Remember what I said earlier about the Cabal always giving us clues in movies and pop culture as to what really goes on, but always disguised as fiction or symbols, so people have no practical way of understanding any of it, or being led to perceive it as fantasy only. Reality supersedes fantasy, my friends, and a lot of that fantasy is based on reality and not the other way around. The Galactic Federation, structured as yet another onion, is the direct and absolute manager of the affairs on Earth. And it is the organism that monitors and supervises all the levels below it, with many of them usually not very aware of what takes place above. That's where the role of my friends from orbit comes in, as it is them who, being members of the Federation itself, were able to shed light on this situation from their lens, from way above. We consider the Federation to be the ultimate controllers of Earth, and to who the Cabal in control of Earth responds to. Okay, let's pause here and go into this topic more fully in the next episode, as it is very big. It deserves separate attention and probably will take multiple classes in the future to understand. I think you had enough to chew on for today. Let's meet again soon. Stay tuned. Unveiling of realities behind the curtain has just begun. See you in the next one.
Summary. Everything to do with the power structure on and around Earth is layered and compartmentalized. The first most basic layer is the matrix level, with official governments, science, media, education, etc., what most people believe to be authority. Next level is deep state, a shadow government right behind the official one, military and intelligence services, etc. Next, we have a complex network of secret societies and clans run across the world, with some that can be called Illuminati elites and also Earthhuman Cabal, secretly controlling the world from behind. People on this level believe in karma, duality, and they often play both sides of the game. They have their own economy and religions. They have no empathy towards the population and exploit them as cattle for their own purposes. One of the main command centers of Cabal is the Vatican. Vatican is basically the state of Rome, and the Pope is the Caesar. Deeper behind this level, all interconnected, there are levels of Cabal entering contact and treaties with negative non-human factions. The top manager of the pyramid, as understood thus far, is a Galactic Federation, headquartered outside Earth, a megastructure that supervises and monitors all levels below.